Nonfiction writing, such as research, should be about truth. You see me bringing this up, this particular topic that I'm presenting right now really is about that, finding truth, stating truth. One of the main threshold concepts that you'll deal with in this class is that writing depends on different variables and that it's not perfectible. We're going to look at reasons why. I quoted a statement from a book by Friend and Challenger, who said that when it comes to accuracy, pure objectivity may be an unreachable idea. And the sick, because all writing is biased. That's my insertion there. But a commitment to facts, fairness, and completeness are not. The words author and authority come from the same Latin root, and an author is you might say, the person who has the original message or the primary and original intent for the writing. And they are seen as the authority. And so much objectivity is valued when it comes to writing scientific research. But not all research is scientific, and not all, and even scientific research has different points of views. But we're going to be looking at research when it comes to scholarly inquiry, which takes a little bit of a different tact. I did make this statement. I do believe that while all writing is biased, motivated, and situated, for most theorists it means that truth is also biased, motivated, situated, and therefore meaning is shaped by interpretation. So in one sense of the word, I can challenge Friend and Challenger, and I can even somewhat challenge some of our own textbook in some ways, although there's so much great stuff in there. In general, it is very true that these concepts of situated and motivational and bias and all those things really do impact meaning. And in that case, different people will interpret meaning different ways. But the reason for that is because in the concept of scholarly inquiry, where you are participants instead of the original author, you are not the primary communicator of the speech or of the writing, but you're just a participator, and so therefore the meaning of the text is not only about what the authors of a text might have to say, but in a participatory communication, it's about what your community has to say and how to interpret that. We now realize that in much of modern writing, people are looking for his truth or her truth, and truth telling may not be the motivation for the writing. So this is where critical thinking becomes important, and we'll be talking about critical thinking. This is independent thinking, where you are not just given over to groupthink. That is one of the big problems that I have seen with writing over the years, is there's too much groupthink rather than using good critical thinking and good analysis of all the bits and pieces of the writing. The question then becomes whether it's possible to be purely objective, and whether that means there's only one truth. In your book, it says objectivity is not physically or biologically possible for humans. We are limited to selectivity and partiality, which makes bias, that is literally slanting, inevitable. We can be more or less objective by trying to get the most complete view of a situation or experience possible. But we can never achieve objectivity. Simply put, if objectivity means without any bias, it's impossible to do in writing, which is one of the reasons why I'm going to try to share with you some thoughts about four approaches that I think we need to understand when it comes to writing. First of all is what I call hitting home. If writing is at least going to have the perception of truth-telling, and it should be evidence, not perceived, writing should be honest. And is it possible to be objective? Is it possible to deal with whether there is the truth? Or is there a question about whether the truth is going to resolve all the problems and all the issues that is a part of what is being written about? And that's one of the threshold concepts that is important to our understanding. Does it resolve all the issues? So being honest is absolutely important. Honesty is an approach to writing. If you want to connect your communication and your reader to reality, writing should communicate information, ideas, and facts as accurately as possible, being unpolluted by emotion or nefarious intention. We will have a lot of social debates probably, and because it's so much on people's mind, whether it's diversity or racism, abortion, gay marriage, religion, politics. I mean, wouldn't it be nice just to be nice and simple in this class, and we can all talk about what the best food is, and then we can argue about that. I imagine people can even get emotional about arguing over food. But anyway, these scholarly research, we're going to be talking about issues for your discourse community. And some of you are going to be studying business. What comes up in business? What needs to be changed? What about ethics? Do we need minimum wage? Do we need a permanent permanent wage for everybody? Those might be some of the issues. So emotion can get there, and then of course some people in writing there with their agenda and their bias is certainly going to slant the truth. So the question is, does this always hold true for persuasive writing, or writing that wants to create change or control ideas? In other words, can you truly be honest in your approach? Is it your truth, her truth, his truth, or the truth? What is based in reality? One thing that we'll understand is not always about getting the facts right. Scholarly writing is about creating truth or discovering and communicating truth. And I have noticed that even PhDs writing on climate change have different points of view. So whose truth is right about that? This is where, again, critical thinking, independent thinking requires you to understand how to go about researching. Scholarly writing is about honesty, content. What is it that you're saying? How do you say it? How do you come up with your ideas? The process. So how do you think? All of your writing depends on your thinking. And if you're a stinking thinker, garbage in, garbage out. And if you're not one, if you're a lazy thinker, and I'll be honest with you, a lot of the essays I've read over the years where students turned in their research papers at the last minute, hoping that it would be useful and meaningful, and did poor jobs. What is the rhetoric? What is the situation for your writing? So being honest is an important part of being objective. Being objective, trust must correspond to reality because writing involves actions and goals, most of which require decision making. Reports for decision making, persuasive essays, scientific reports, and research depend on better understanding the phenomena being studied. Okay. Research must be meaningful. What you say, or why do you say it? Content is so important. Tell us why you've said what you've said. There are three kinds of meaning, and we're already, into that. It kind of talked about that a little bit. One is that all writing has a purpose, so it's the meaning for the writer. What's the purpose and the agenda? And the second is all writing has a meaning for the audience, and This, of course, has to do with issues of power. It has to do with issues of behavior. It has to deal with issues of how you're going to respond and what things are going to get done, and all what does it mean to me? What kind of personal meaning do you get out of it? All writing has a purpose and needs that must be met by the communication, and that's the exegetes. When I say communication is a form of power used by the sender to effect a desired mental or behavioral change that is measured by the responses of the receivers. In other words, what's going to get done? If the meaning is unclear or opaque, then the responses are liable also to be unclear and opaque and possibly even damaging. A communication is only meaningful, that's it's only good, when it accomplishes what the sender and receivers accomplish, what the sender sends, and the receiver accomplish what needs to be done. That's one way of considering the objective or the meaning behind being objective or truth telling. If you're basing your communication in reality, you're more likely to get true results that were intended by the sender. That brings up a couple of viewpoints on meaning itself. One was called the transmission view of meaning. Communication is only successful when the receiver responds as the sender intended, and there's no negotiation in the meaning. Having consensus is an important concept that we're going to be looking at when it comes to scholarly writing and getting consensus, because you're writing in a discourse community. But sometimes your discourse is primarily based, or your communication is based on an intentional genre, an intentional document. It may be a proposal where you want to get something done. It may be a report where there is specifics that need to be taken care of, and there doesn't need to be any negotiation going on. So that's one of the purposes of writing. In the concept of transmission view, which is more of a scientific, objective view of writing, a different response is a communication filter. So the encoding by the sender is supposed to be the dominant or preferred meaning. The concept of meaning is important, especially when it comes to businesses, technical, or scientific writing that depends on the facts. Most used for cause and effect problems and practical problems that require choices about actions. The goal is clarity, brevity, and transparency. On the other hand, the translation view of meaning, which is a lot of what we will be doing in our research, where we're dealing with a lot of different kinds of issues that also intend to get things done, matching up the genre with the views are important. But if your genre is say political in nature, or if your purpose is political in nature, or if your purpose is to just add to a body of knowledge about a particular subject that is being discussed in the discourse community, maybe your discourse community is in the humanities and psychology and things like that, and you have to deal with issues in a much different sort of a way. So this is where you got to find out what your clientele is thinking about something, and how do you deal with them. So meaning becomes negotiated then is between the sender and the receiver, and sometimes there's power struggles in it. Meaning comes as a result of a dominant cultural order. Is my truth, his truth, or social truth? So it depends on the culture that you're in. and there's a lot of variables and a lot of differences. Power struggles can exist in getting things done. If you try to do some things in China, in a manufacturer in China or in Vietnam or some other country, and there's language barriers and there's cultural barriers to doing things over there that are different here. How do you turn around writing out the policies and procedures manuals? That can be a big difference. Problem solving, if you have ill-defined problems because of you might have differences in values. The problems might be the differences in values or the principles and concepts. So how do you use persuasion in order to get people to understand what is being meant? And your persuasive essay, of course, this is one of the things that you'll see a lot of. How do you view meaning? The goal for writing can be clarification, or it might be to change the cultural norms. If writing is going to at least have a perception of truth-telling, it certainly needs to be ethical. Truth-telling, honesty, being objective, and being meaningful all depend on a commitment to ethical writing, which is a core concept that says your authority and power is legitimately sanctioned and manifested. So we will certainly be discussing more of this, and you will be getting more of this in your class discussions online and face-to-face.